We're recording.
Yeah, all right. Well, legislative committee meeting, 8/24/2020. Present is Councilperson Wolf, Councilperson Schimpf, Councilperson Benedetti, Councilperson Bruger, Chair of the committee, and Mayor Hughes, and Eric Fisher, village planner guy. So our big thing here, we did table, and I'm scrolling to find what it was, the sidewalk amendment. Anyone have that number real quick? On the sidewalk ordinance?
I don't have that number.
That's 09/2020.
09/2020. We were about to do the third reading. Man, the packet for tonight is huge. That fence variance took up a lot of pages. We tabled that. There it is. On the night of the third reading, because Councilperson Benedetti had said there were some typos and issues with it. So unless anyone has objection, I'm going to turn it over to him so he can point out what he thinks needs to be fixed before we pass it.
All right, if you go to 102207C, which talks of, well, I don't know what, what it says. I've just written down here, it talks about the types of finishes, broom finish or float finish. Over in the new development, everything there is broom finished. So I think we ought to take out the float finish and just make it one finish, a broom finish. That's 102207, paragraph C.
See, there we go. The finished surface of the sidewalk shall be float finished or broom finished perpendicular to the blah, 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 blah.
Right, that, I would like to see float finish, the word float finish taken out.
Okay.
And then you go to G.
Let me make a note of that, 'cause I don't think anyone else is on here making notes here.
Sorry, I'm not. You got it?
Yep, go ahead.
1022 OC07C. Remove float finish.
Yep.
All right, and then G. Is, I believe it talks about being 4 or 5 foot sections or at 5 foot wide that the
No.
sidewalks.
It says the surface of the sidewalk shall be divided into blocks by joints.
Oh, okay, that's the one by 5 foot.
5 foot. So those are your,
Right, but the new development, they're 4 foot, not 5 foot.
okay, so same
And they're
thing.
squares and they're not rectangles.
Gotcha, Eric, you're sort of nodding your head.
Yeah, we can that's absolutely get those fixed.
Those are just,
Okay, change to 4 foot.
and then I think it's K that it talks about the width of the sidewalk being 5 foot.
Yes, and width in residential section of the village, blah, 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 blah.
That should be 4 feet, not 5 feet.
We'll switch out all 5s to 4s wherever they may sit.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Change.
Then, I got a little frustrated when okay, if you're looking through that right there, it goes up to W. If you go to W in that section and then look at the next letter, it's A.
Yeah, it should be double. The formatting got altered in the Word to the PDF conversion, so we'll re-letter those. That's not a problem. That's a technical change.
And then, what else was there? There was enough, and I'm not sure where this is at, but it talks about the sidewalk being 6 inches where the driveway's at, or when it butts up to an apron. That the concrete's 4 inches on the sidewalk, but it has to be 6 inches where it butts up to the apron or where the driveway's at. And then it calls out for having a foot of 6 inches into the sidewalk on both sides, which is not the way it was done in the new development. They don't have a bump out into the sidewalk, 1 foot that's at 6 inches deep. Are you following me, Eric?
Sure, I'm following you, yes.
And I'm just going by what they have at the, the way their sidewalks were done. And that's not the way they were done.
Fair enough.
So
What we can do is obviously verify those construction specs and make sure those appropriate ones to match up are in the code here. So there's always these small differences when we take code from one to the other. But yeah, we can easily fix that.
Let's see what. Well, I mean, there was some language in there about giving your application. When you turn in your application, you have to tell who the contractor is, so we'll check out their licensing. There was that paragraph in there that
Yeah, if you don't want that, if the council doesn't want that in there, we can remove that.
Any thoughts, anyone else on that?
What was the section so that I can review it
I don't
more
remember
closely?
that.
Yeah, I'm hunting for it now. Yeah, it's typical. That's typical language that we, in most municipalities want to make sure that their residents are protected from any shenanigans out there. So usually that's in there for checking.
We don't have any. I don't know that we have any type of licensing requirement. That's what I'm.
We don't have any contractor registration. This is true. Where these things are in there is to make sure that the village can double check somebody's ability to do proper work. So again, if the council doesn't want anyone checking that, then by all means, we can remove it.
I don't think we need to be policing the contractors that people hire for installing a sidewalk.
1022.05 A, notify the village engineer / code enforcement officer or designated representative in writing of the identity of the contractor who will perform the work. The village may register the contractor and examine the contractor's license.
You can get rid of that again if council doesn't want it. We usually in the applications have them put down their contractor, especially with contact information, should we have any questions on the application.
I'm sorry, you got a buzz there. So did you say people typically do that or do not do that?
Typically what happens is, I mean, in our applications, we typically, if someone's got a contractor, we typically like to, have the contact information. So if we have any questions about the application, if we see something, we can call the contractor to verify. Because sometimes people don't fill these out right, whether it's a fence, whether it's, doesn't matter, deck. And we'll call them, Jason will call them, whoever, and we'll say, hey, we would, verify this or this. And so we usually collect their info. It's a different matter if you want to remove the language and you just want.
We can still collect the info on the application. What I'm opposed to is implying that we're going to check out the licensing of the contractor.
Yeah, and it's a full council decision. To us, it makes no difference. It's in there because we borrowed this language, obviously, and most municipalities have something
like
this
Columbus. They have a whole licensing. You have to be a licensed contractor to get a permit in Columbus.
Yes,
but we don't do anything like that.
No, we don't.
No, we don't.
Should we be doing it just for sidewalk though? Because it's our sidewalk. I mean, it's a village's sidewalk.
But it's the resident's responsibility. This is where
I know it's the resident's responsibility. I'm just saying that the end product. I've lived in older suburbs where people have replaced their sidewalk, and it could be really hodgepodgey and really ugly, even though it's functional. It doesn't look very nice. It's not very attractive because there's so many different.
Well, I don't think we required anyone we don't require that anyone get a contractor. You can do this yourself.
That's right.
Okay,
that's right.
so that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But if you want to get into starting to, having licensed contractors and all that stuff, then that's a whole other conversation.
No, I just think if somebody, I think it would be helpful to me if I was trying to, if I wanted to make sure all the sidewalks are going to look reasonably the same or similar in their final product, I would probably be interested in knowing who the contractor was or knowing that they were doing it themselves so I could keep more of an eye on it. So if you said, oh, we're using contractor
We have-
ABC.
We have a standard that's described. It is, and that's why I brought up removing the float finish. Because if you want it to all look the same, you don't want to have some people having a float finish and other, existing ones have a broom finish.
Tony, Diane was speaking. I would like you to be respectful during these meetings. Diane, please finish.
Okay, so the thing I want to say is I like the idea that it's in there. It doesn't say it says we're just going to take a look at the license. It doesn't mean that we're going to, do anything more than take a look at the license. Oh yeah, there is one and it is current. If we even do that. So it's not obligating us to do more than that. And so it's not going to hurt to have it in there. We're not vetting the contractor. So if this contractor, if we find out the contractor is a contractor who did poor work in the village before, then that would be a good thing to know.
Could we satisfy everyone if we just chopped off the end of that sentence and we had notify the engineer / code enforcement officer or designated representative in writing of the identity of the contractor who will perform the work, period. And we don't put so that we can check their license. We just say you need to put it. So if it's on the application or whatever, then they could have it. I mean, so we would get the name and then we can do with it what we want. We're not saying we have to check things out.
Well, so you'll notice that the language doesn't actually obligate anything, right? From our end, it's a may, right? Give us the name so that we may register or may look into their licensing. It doesn't obligate anything on our end. However, what it does do is it sort of future-proofs this so that at some point in the future, 5 years down the line, we find that letting people do it on their own is a problem, or certain contractors are a problem, or whatever, and we're writing contractor registration ordinance for those purposes, we've collected data, right? And we already have that we can look into their licensing for these purposes here, and won't have to change the ordinance down the road.
I mean, I'm fine, especially now that you point out that it says may. I'm fine with that. I was trying to make everyone happy, but I think we can just keep it and make most people happy.
So I guess my question is, doesn't that imply that they must have a license? To me, that implies that your contractor, you can't do it yourself.
No, elsewhere in the text, it says you can do it yourself.
Well, I understand it says that, but that to me means that you can't. I mean, read that sentence again.
Right, so it starts with construction by property owner. All property owners shall take responsibility for performing the required construction repairs and replacement, shall return to the village within 20 days of the date of notice sent by the village the following requirements and specifications. Notify the village engineer, code enforcement officer, or designated representative in writing of the identity of the contractors who will perform the work, so the village may register the contractor and examine the contractor's licensing.
That
Right?
to me means, I understand. Then if it says somewhere else in there that you can do self, that to me, without reading it 7 times, that to me means you have to have a licensed contractor do your work.
Anybody can be a contractor, and by examining their license, if we were to choose to examine a contractor's license who doesn't have a license, we find they don't have a license. There's nothing in here that requires that they have a license.
Yeah, we don't have the registration.
Well, asking to examine their license to me means they have to have a license. I just think it's very vague.
It doesn't preclude them. It is meant to be vague. That is correct, Mary.
No, I guess I don't mean it that way. By requesting to see someone's license, that to me means if you don't have a license, they can't do it.
Yeah. Just jumping ahead to individual property owners, they're always allowed to do their own work.
I understand that, but that to me means that they.
That's okay. The may is the key part of that sentence.
Right,
So-
but that's if you are, that is if you are going to analyze a 9-page contract, word by word, or 9-page ordinance, word by word. If I read that, I would think that I needed a licensed contractor to do the work.
so
And
do
then
you-
when I read other parts that say that you can do it yourself, it's just, to me, it's confusing. I think it's
It does.
9 pages of confusingness.
So what most municipalities do, if I may, is when we have, nobody reads the code. I'll be very clear about that. The vast majority of people don't go and read this before they do their own work. What they do is they call and they say, hey, can I do this? What do I need to do? Now, typically speaking, what most municipalities have is they have some form of quick help guide or some type of sheet or some type of guidance that is essentially paraphrasing the code. You can do A, B, C. You can have a room finish. You can do it yourself. Your contractor, needs to follow the specs. We can provide the specs, yada, yada. There's lots of different parts of that, right? Code is there to make sure we set a standard and, if necessary, be able to enforce the standard through a court, okay, at the end of the day.
I don't pass it. I just think it's 9 pages of confusingness, and you're going to cause yourself more headache than it's worth. And people are going to be asking a bazillion questions because it's 9 pages of what I view as conflicting information. I think it's very misleading, and that's my opinion. And some people you don't have to agree with me whatsoever. But when I read that, the first thing I think is you must have a contractor, and then the other parts say you don't. And at that point, I would just.
Well, there is further down, there's language that says repeatedly, the contractor or other party performing the construction. So can we add that up top, or other party
would add more
performing construction?
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
We can change it around.
Here is just to say, notify the village engineer, blah, 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 of the identity of the contractor or other person who will perform the.
Other party or other party performing the construction. That's the exact language further down in the.
That's what I would do, because you don't have that in that. To me, that just means you need, when you send over, yes, that to me would solve all your problems. But by asking somebody for a license, to me means you have to have a license if you're not saying or other party.
Okay. We can get it adjusted so it's clear. It's easy to do.
Unless your intent is to make them have a license. So yeah.
And what was that language again, just so I can write it down? Or other party, what was it? Or other?
Other party performing the work.
There we go. I don't
I'm
know
sorry,
why
performing the
changes.
construction. They could say, or other party performing the construction.
The construction. There we go. That way we have
The same language throughout that, and it matches the
to
other.
avoid confusion.
Yeah.
Mr. Bruger, what I intend is that I will go back through and make the changes prior to unless the intent is to pass it tonight, there's not a rush for it. I can go back through, make sure all the changes are made and resubmit for the September 14th.
Yeah, I've said on this one, I see no rush with legislation that's not going to be hopefully looked at for 5 years, because hopefully the sidewalks will last at least 5 years. So that, unless anyone else got a hot foot on this, I'm fine with making sure we get it up right. Hot foot, anyone else? Hot foot, Brian? Diane, okay. All right, well, Tony left, so we can't get any more.
He's having, hang on, let me make sure. He just said
I think he was having technical issues because he glitched out and froze up and then dropped.
That is perhaps what I should have thought of happened first. So I will apologize for any editorializing I seem to have there. Have we gotten ahead? Does anyone else have anything else they want to talk about with legislation? Diane, I know you were asking in the emails about one of the things that just got it out on late. Did you have any questions or things you wanted about that?
I can run.
No, that was the MI list. Eric was in his email to us where he gave us a list. He had several items where he said, I'm providing a map.
So yes, I will address that. So Emma and I had a discussion. We opted for a walkthrough. Most of those things didn't need a map, as they were on the walkthrough. Everything was identified by their team. So there is no map. I can show you on this evening, for part of the discussion, I will bring up a map and show you as Jason talks about things. We'll kind of chime in as to where those items are. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, so if we're confused, we won't have a map to help us. Some of these sites are not self-explanatory, which is probably why you had the walkthrough. And I realize the walkthrough is easier than a map, but that's not really helping council a whole lot.
Understood. And you haven't, forgive me for my week off in between, and that's put me behind a little bit. So I'll be more than happy, obviously before conveyance, as MI goes through everything, I'll be able to, I can highlight things, you know, as we go through this. So, and then I can provide a map. What I'll do this evening is I will provide one for the basis of viewing on Zoom, and I will walk through on items there, and then we can formalize that for another meeting.
All right. Well, I have a question then. 11/2020. That's coming up tonight. Amend planned residential district zoning.
Yes.
Is that changing the fence, or is that getting us ready to take over the land?
Oh, you mean the, I'm sorry, the variance? Or the text?
Ordinance 11/2020.
Oh, okay. So, hold on, let me just look at that. I believe ordinance 11/2020, pulled up, apologize.
That's
This
the development
development.
about the
Yeah.
corner lots.
Yeah, all that does, from our last discussion, is that simply allows us to stop with the crazy variances, which we have more and more coming in. You have one that beat us this evening that has to be considered and approved, but it's asking for the same thing that will then eliminate the rest of the variance requests down the road. Since
Okay,
everybody-
so this is that
Right,
corner.
we did have an objection from Tony on that, but I don't think there was anyone else who objected to it.
Yeah, that was the corner fence issue then.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I thought it was. I just didn't want to have to get there at meeting tonight and be scrambling through and going, yeah, this is something, and it's a lot of
No,
pages. Scroll
yeah.
through it, everyone. There it
Just-
is, corner lots. It's like on page 8 of it.
Yes, it's just a small addition which will fix everyone's variance request issues.
And that is the last thing in my packet. So let's go backwards and see what else we have for tonight. Anyone else have anything they want to bring up?
Yes, I sent an email very late as we were working on a fee schedule with the school redevelopment. Again, because I had a break in between the weeks, I'm a little behind in catching up. So it's not issued tonight for a reading unless council so desires, but I just emailed you and I can share my screen to show you. This deals with the fee schedule change and the very short resolution that approves that. One second. Maybe, there we go. All right, sorry, getting situated here. Okay. All right. What we're proposing from the administrative side is some adjustments as the school district has put out for bid their school, essentially the elementary school that's already made through P&Z. And so the contractors, the GCs are out there, wanting to get their fees, and everything handled. So we did not in the, last fee schedule approved back in 2018 necessarily anticipate the school as of yet. So I have made adjustments, and I'll kind of start at the top. Everything in red is a proposed change, and we'll kind of work our way down. The commercial fee schedules, since Minerva Park hasn't done a commercial building for a long time. And so those were light on, if we were charging originally, we're charging $450 for a house review. If we had a commercial building, it was at $300, I think. And so I upped that to an appropriate review fee and broken it down. As we get into bigger buildings, and the school is going to be a big building, it's going to be a base amount over 10,000 square foot of $1,500 plus. I put as an arbitrary number $500 per 3,000 square foot. As you get into a bigger building, there's more review time, and there's more inspections, and there's more time you spend. In fact, today I was already out there spending time with residents who abut the exit road as they were sharing their concerns as far as landscaping. And so those are things that have to be worked out in the final zoning approval. So time will be spent going through the process. So I have proposed an appropriate zoning review fee, which is what these changes are right here. And that's the first one. as we go down, there's also our engineer. So in this particular case, the engineer passes back fees to us for his inspections and reviews. In the case of the subdivision, there are fees that they charge back each time he's out there for a tap fee or any type of inspection along those lines. In this case, they budgeted approximately, to my knowledge, 10 grand, which they will charge us to do all the engineering review. That we make an actual cost to be passed back to the developer in this case, so that they cover those engineering review fees, and it's not a net loss for us. And those are real costs, so they can be, you know, recouped. Now the big ends come down to our tap fees. So obviously, from a long-term standpoint, there's a lot of infrastructure to maintain, and this is, you know, a continuing issue, as we're well aware, with tap fees. Now, the school in this case has proposed a rather large tap, 8 inches. It's big. They have to pay City of Columbus fees, and they're not cheap. So a City of Columbus water tap fee for an 8-inch line is $100,000. All right, and that's just City of Columbus. We don't get any of that. Just like with our residential fees, we have to pay City of Columbus when we collect their sewer and water fees, and we do have an additional amount that we collect and then put into our pockets to be able to, you know, for our buckets of money to be able to make repairs.
Is that $100,000 a one-time fee?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a one-time fee. So obviously, any water usage fees, as you know, you've been discussing in brief, you can change over the course of time and add on your surcharges and things like that, but that's a different item. What we proposed here is, as you'll note, both the, well, and then just to tell you, so the sewer tap fees are even more expensive. With Columbus, they're $162,000 for an 8-inch line. They have to pay. Now, to be reasonable, we obviously don't want to double up their fee, right? Or any commercial developer's fee. It's a large number. So what we proposed in here, after some discussion with the mayor, and this is a little bit of some economic development thinking, because you obviously will have redevelopment down the road. Don't know what that is necessarily, is that we have a range where any particular mayor can set, you know, the fee from 50 to 75% of the City of Columbus fees. So, you know, the base amount is 50%. So no matter what, if you've got a $160,000 sewer tap fee for City of Columbus, they've got to pay us $80,000. Okay. But could be higher. And in some, you know, with a school, maybe it's appropriate to make it 50%. Maybe it's appropriate to make it 75%, right? Because it's a one-time fee, and we've got to make sure we have the ability long-term to manage our finances and correct for these things. But if you've got another development that might have some large tap fees, you know, again, it's something that you can negotiate with the developer, especially when you're going through the process of a variety of different things that you may need from an improvement standpoint. So that's the thinking behind a percentage range where you have a base floor and then giving the mayor some discretion to negotiate that final fee or set it as necessary. And then the storm sewer fee is simply about, I set it at 10% of the Minerva Park water fees. Right now, just to give you an idea of range, we're charging roughly $1,000, or we are charging $1,000 per house. And with the houses, we pay some of that money, as an example, about half of it to City of Columbus. So we're roughly in the park for, you know, that amount. And obviously it ranges up depending on what that final fee gets to. So if we've got, you know, if we've got a $75,000 water tap fee, you know, that's a $7,500 sewer fee. Then, you know, if the council feels it should be higher, we can make it higher, but it's kind of done along those lines. And I'm looking to see if I have anything else. I think that's it. So those are the primary development fees that we, you know, need to approve, so that when the bidding process for the Westerville schools is done and the final GC is selected and they submit all of this, we're ready to go. And like I said, there'll be more time to discuss it, because September 14th is after, obviously, the work session as well.
Did you present this in legislation for a reason? Is it because we'll be writing legislation for it?
Yes.
Because there has to be legislation to adopt the change to the fee schedule.
Yes.
So I just didn't know if you were going to repeat this during the council meeting, or.
You don't have to repeat this tonight. I present it because obviously as the committee that reviews legislation, it's important from a timing standpoint that we talk to you first, not just put it into, I mean, we could put it on the first reading on the September 14th, but we also want to talk about it as as an emergency, so it's done. So since it deals specifically with the fees that we need to collect. So
That's why it's an emergent, well, why is it an emergency?
because I want to make sure that we can legitimately charge the fees we need to. If the GCs, their bidding process is going to be done here within this month. All right, someone's going to get awarded and they're going to start submitting for permits. So we want to make sure that we have a fee schedule approved. We have a significant amount of time, several more weeks before, in a work session to discuss this if this is in any way controversial. And obviously, if council finds it to be controversial, doesn't want to do anything that doesn't go anywhere. We're simply proposing to make sure it gets adopted on a quick schedule.
The other reason,
Go ahead,
the
Ryan.
other reason why you want to do it as an emergency is otherwise you give people a 30-day notice of sale prices, right? Without these changes, and if we don't make it an emergency, they have 30 days to rush in and get their stuff submitted before these changes go into effect.
And this is money that was kind of one time, get it when they first do it, or else it's gone because, well, actually, we are having another school built the following year, but
Yeah,
but
still.
money from both schools.
We are getting phone calls asking about what the current fees are.
So, and so, is this something that we're just, where is this a negotiation, or is this just take it or leave it for the schools, Westerville?
If we set it in our standards, here's how I'm going to say it. You can't negotiate it with Columbus. Now, I would say, and Eric will vouch for this, they've asked us to help them with the fees for the simple fact that if this school were being built in Westerville, they wouldn't be paying these fees.
Correct. They won't pay any fee. So it's different.
Yeah, this is totally different, but it's just kind of like MI. Once we set the fees, they were what they were. So
I realized that. I wasn't asking about that. I was asking, is it at any point before the fees are set, is it a negotiation? Are they expecting to be able to push back with us before we finalize this?
Not necessarily. That's not the thought process here. We want to make sure we get the fees set so that we have something to tell them so the GCs can't properly bid. We can.
I got that. I just don't know what, so we're saying, let's say we say, let's do 75%. Yeah, that's it. And then Westerville starts, my heart is breaking. I thought we were on the same team. We're looking for 50%. What happened?
They come to council and they can plead their case, and if you guys want to change the fee for them, then that's your prerogative, quite frankly. So
What I think about this is it says the mayor, and 50 to 75%.
yes, correct.
If they want to say, and if we want to just say, we think 50% is fair, let's tell them 75% so they can come back and say, how about 50? And we can say, okay, because you guys are swell. Then they can feel good and we can get the 50% we wanted all along.
Correct.
And that's what people expect. That then that's the problem. It's a chicken or the egg. Then people expect you, they want us to push back, or they don't want us to push back, or it becomes a game. And then
at the end of the day, Westerville has
development's a game.
place to build these schools. There is no other land in Westerville with enough space to build it that they already own. We're not worried about them saying, well, we'll build our school somewhere else, because they can't.
Well, okay, but yes, but the relationship is going to be long-term, and you want to be able to negotiate from a big picture point of view rather than niggling on item by item, in my opinion. And you may want to, play this as, okay, we'll do 50%, but then we'll be looking for something from you later on, like an extra dozen trees, or, I don't know what it is. I'm just saying that we should look at it from the bigger picture relationship point of view.
Diane,
Eric.
that's exactly what Eric and I talked about. That's the reason for the range of 50 to 75%. I don't want to go any further on this. This is something, it's not but yeah, there's reasons for the 50 to 75%. And I don't want to say it's because complete negotiation and this and that, but yes, this gives us a little bit of a headway to being able to yeah, maybe asking them for something that we need, and that comes in a different topic that maybe not tonight.
Yeah, got it.
So
Okay.
yes, you guys aren't, you're hitting it on the head.
Is that 50 to 70% in line with what other similar municipalities are doing? That's my only question.
Not in the sense of what you're asking, because we don't control our own water, right? And so that's,
Right, but there are other municipalities where it's, I'm sure, Columbus Water, and I'm sure those municipalities have
yes.
similarly their own fees on top of. So are these fees in line with other similar municipalities?
I would have to say off the top of my head, probably this is a special case, and I would probably say no. I'm not basing it on that. I'm basing it on, and I'd have to go back and look, because it was
Mhm.
based on the unique conditions within the village, right? Other municipalities have a significant difference in commercial developments, and we do not. So you really have a one-time hit here to be able to charge what you charge, and that's it. Okay. And it rarely will come around. So you have concerns from an infrastructure standpoint. This is one way to try to mitigate that.
Right.
If you want me to, obviously by the time we have a work session, I can obviously present to you some other examples.
Yeah.
This is a very strange one too, because of the amount of, they're asking for a big tap, and that's expensive as far as Columbus's taps are concerned, but so are other entities. And so it's a big pipe. For whatever reason, that's what they say they need.
Okay, so moving forward here, I think that we can probably have a first reading with this tonight, right?
Okay.
If the idea is expedience, right? And then at the Saturday work session, I know I'd like to understand how this compares to other municipalities, and just for my own peace of mind, because I wouldn't want to be anti-competitive in these sorts of ways.
You have to also, and I'm going to agree with Eric on this, and I would be anxious to see what the numbers are as well. We also did kind of use the MI, how much of a percentage we want up with the MI homes when we did theirs. We did look at, that was one of the things we did look at, how much is Columbus's tap fee, how much are we going to charge? One of them was significantly over the 50 to 75%, but I think that was, I think we all know what the deal was with that one. So we also did look at just the basic residential ones when we were looking at that, but he's not incorrect to talk about the fact that we don't have any additional commercial properties. This is a building over completely by itself, and in the event that there's an issue with our lines connecting up to this, we're responsible for those.
Sure.
Would they, as part of the negotiation, could they, and would you allow them to demand that this be, if the money is paid, it's put in an account that is only used for them?
I'm not sure that you can do that. You have to put it into the proper account. We'd have to verify that. I'm not sure you can do that.
It would just have to go into, it'll have to go in, I would assume, just like our storm sewers. If it's a storm sewer pipe, it's going to go into the storm sewer fund. If it's a sanitary, if it's a water tap, it's going to go into the water tap fund. And those funds, I mean, that's just going to be up to our fiscal officer, our councils, and our mayors to realize that that's why this money is in there, and to not spend it towards, and I do get what you're saying. But we're responsible for these. So these are going to be our lines.
If something fails up the line, it goes to fix it because they still want to get their water. So,
Right.
Just a quick question, because Brian was mentioned, do we have work session this Saturday?
Not this Saturday.
Like the 11th or 12th or something. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's after the Labor Day weekend, and it's the weekend after the Labor Day weekend.
So 12.
11th, I think, 11th, 12th.
The Saturday before the second Monday of the month. So
Yeah,
the
put that
14th
in
is the
English.
second Monday, so it's the 12th.
All right. So if you want it on tonight's agenda, I'll find what the proper resolution number is here before the next meeting, and I can send that out if you like, or send it to all of council, or how do you want me to proceed?
It is, just so you know, if we're talking about, the next resolution number is 30.
Is it 29? I don't have that down.
29 should be the storms due to, oh, please tell me you have the storm sewer improvements. It's 29. Is it on the agenda? Yeah, 29 storm sewer improvements.
All right, so is it the wish of the committee, then you want me to forward this out to everyone before the meeting, and I guess we can share it to talk about it, or you guys will add it by vote?
Yeah, we can amend the agenda by vote and
Okay.
Yeah, it's 30.
How is Westerville at all concerned about construction costs? I had heard somebody, they were interviewing someone on NPR, and the guy was saying that lumber has gone up like 45%.
He is correct. It is something we're seeing in the city with various projects, and faster they get moving, the cheaper it'll be. So I'm sure they're painfully aware of that.
I would agree. Ugh.
All right, I don't have anything else unless there's any other questions.
No, the only other legislation we were gonna put on the agenda at some point was the yard signs. It's 6:45 now. People might want to break before the 7, but we were gonna kind of look at the yard signs, right?
Is this yard signs for political signs? Or
These
yard
are signs in general.
Signs,
Oh,
period.
okay.
General.
Okay, understood. We'll have to prepare
I'm
something.
looking at what I think the agenda is for tonight, and I don't see 2020-29 listed on it, unless I have an old version. I definitely don't.
Yeah, no, she sent out a new one on Friday night.
I really think I had the new one opened. Let's
Because
see.
you should also have ordinance
I
12
did have an older one. I had an older one. I just pulled up a different one, and it's got 2020-29 on it.
Good. Good.
Just, there we go. That was the problem. All right.
Yeah, I was a little concerned that we didn't get MI on the agenda. That would have been nice, for historical purposes, to know that this was the night we did have them in to talk.
I can have her adjust it because she's got to adjust it to add the other resolution. So I will make sure that we get it added because I do want to do them. I mean, is it okay for you guys? I know we're talking about legislation right now, but is it okay to do them just right after roll call so they can get on and get off? Do you want to do the minutes first? Where do you guys want to add them in?
When we have guests, to let them go first.
That's what I would like. I would just like to do roll call and straight to the MI.
Right.
So
Yeah, if you could just make sure the agenda gets
Will.
amended, so.
I'll leave this on her desk. Please add. I'll do it on here and leave these for her first thing tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
And Eric, did you get all the changes we had to the sidewalk thing? Because, I mean, I know I wrote them down. I could email them to
Yes.
you.
I will make sure, yeah, that's fine. I'll make sure they all get changed, and I'll touch base with you probably just to make sure I got everything before the meeting.
Gotcha. All right, everyone, see you now in less than 15 minutes.
all
Okay.
right, see you in a bit.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.